Hey friends, want to know what true inflation looks like in China? It's not in fancy restaurants or designer shopping malls. It is in weddings and the cost of getting married in rural China. Yesterday, one of my high school classmates told me about her brother's wedding in rural Jiangxi province. And I swear, it sounded less like getting married and more like a financial suicide pact. The total bill in US dollars over 180,000 USD. Yes, for the cost of marriage in the countryside. And let me walk you through this circus of expenses. And I've converted them all into US dollars. First, 26,000 US dollars for the bride price. And that is the market rate, apparently. And then $120,000 for a 100 square meter apartment in a dusty small city. And then 21,000 US dollars for an electric car, the commuting vehicle. And then $7,000 for gold jewelry. Well, the gold price is going up. And because gold is the only thing rising faster than China's local debt. And then you add $1,400 for wedding photos, $4,000 for alcohol and a banquet, $2,000 for a wedding planner, and $2,800 for red envelopes. So the grand total, more than 180,000 US dollars to get a wife. And this is not Beijing or Shanghai we're talking about. This is rural Jiangxi. Now, here's where it gets tragic. The sister, my classmate, putting $40,000 from her own savings to help her brother. And her parents emptied $80,000 from their retirement fund. And then her brother still had to borrow $70,000 just to finish the job. The bride's family even said before the wedding that, this housing loan for the apartment, the male side is totally responsible for paying back. The groom, no fancy degree, no great job. But as the sister told me, this is just the market price for a wife these days in a 18th tier city, the countryside. And because in rural China, men significantly outnumber women by tens of millions. And that means marriage is not about love anymore. It is a bidding war. And this didn't happen overnight. Back in the 1980s and 90s, China's infamous one-child policy collided with an old rural obsession, which is better to raise one son than 10 daughters. Families wanted boys, the heir to the family name, the one expected to care for aging parents. So when ultrasound technology arrived, millions quietly aborted baby girls because they only have one baby allowed. And then you fast forward 30 years, China now has 30 million more men than women. So that's 30 million men who will never find a wife, statistically, no matter how much they pay. So, what happens when women become scarce? They become commodities. And this so-called bride price, in Chinese, 彩礼, turned into a market price tag. Parents start competing to buy love for their son the way they would buy property. Higher bids, higher price means better deals. The poorer and more remote the village, the higher the desperation. And the more the price of the wife climbs. So that doesn't sound romantic. That is supply and demand with Chinese characteristics. And now it's gotten so bad, there are now bride price loans. Imagine walking into a bank and saying, "Hi, I'm a single man. I would like a loan to buy a wife." And the banker will ask you, "You want a fixed or variable rate? Do you have any collateral for your wife?" You can't make this up. And even divorced women in China with kids are asking high bride prices now. Because, hey, at least they are proven fertile. And since the groom's family paid such a ridiculous sum just to get married, many brides in rural China refuse to do any housework. Why would they? If the marriage fails, that is 180,000 US dollars gone. And she's still walking away in gold. So this stereotype, the days of Chinese mother-in-laws bossing around daughter-in-laws, those days are gone. The new queens of the countryside come with receipts. Now, here's the irony. The sister, my classmate, the one who told me this story about her brother, went to a top university, got her master's degree, and fell in love freely while working in Beijing. And she got married without a single cent of bride price. She and her husband built their life step by step, saving for their down payment in Beijing, and even helped her brother with 40,000 US dollars of their own money. And what she told me is that the more educated a man is, the less he has to pay to get married. And she's absolutely right, because education gives you options, makes you more competitive in the dating market. And ignorance, being uneducated, gives you bills. So next time someone brags about China's booming economy, remember this story. Behind those gold necklaces and photo shoots are families drowning in debt just to buy a little dignity and a ticket to the marriage market. And when marriage becomes a transaction and this romantic love becomes a mortgage, you're not building a family. You're financing an illusion. And that, my friends, is what real inflation looks like, despite the deflationary collapse in China. The inflation is not in the economy, but in the price of love.